The opinions expressed are those of the host. The material is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute investment advice, and it is not intended as an endorsement for any specific investment. Visit crestmontpw.com for more details.
Welcome to the Ascent. This is Sam McGee with Crestmont Private Wealth. We have offices in Houston, Texas, and Brandy, Texas. And we have a really special guest today. We have Brandy Kinds, who is with the Texas A&M Foundation. She represents a tremendously large organization, which I will let her share the total of assets they have, that is really kind of the giving portal to Texas A&M University. And Brandy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we met not too long ago, which is kind of surprising. In fact, last week, we had Nathan Harness on our podcast, and it was actually at the Financial Planning Annual Conference, and I happened to meet you talking to a couple guys from Merrill Lynch. We're really nice guys, good Aggies, and they started telling me about how you could do an endowed scholarship, and I just had no idea. I thought this was for T. Boone Pickens and, the wealthiest people in America, and that's the only way you could do it, but apparently not. So, take us back to that conversation and maybe just give listeners a good sense of what that means to do an endowed scholarship. And by the way, we're going to come back and we're going to do your background after that.
So, endowed scholarships are a great way for donors to be able to support students. Initially, when we start out, we reach out to donors and try and find their philanthropic passion. In this case, we happen to be at the Financial Planning Conference, having a conversation with a couple of great Aggies who have done scholarships in their own right, and kind of started talking about what the financial planning program, which is a new major within the College of Ag at Texas A&M, really could use. And they are in need of endowed scholarships to help recruit the best and the brightest students, not only within the state of Texas, but across the country. What we do is we work with the donor to figure out what their philanthropic passion is and what type of student they want to help. When we do endowed scholarships, you're able to direct with a scholarship, meaning that you can choose the type of student you want. It could be a student studying financial planning from Kendall County, and that is the type of student that would receive your scholarship. When an endowment is built, we work with the donor on what that number is that they want to build as an endowment. Texas A&M's minimum for an endowment is $25,000. We take those funds and we invest the principal into our long-term investment pool that is housed and managed at the Texas A&M Foundation. Once those investments are generated, interest is pulled back and put into the account so that the student will receive those as a scholarship.
See, this shocked me. So I had no idea that you could create a permanently endowed scholarship. For some people, they just don't know what that means, but that means in perpetuity, there will be a scholarship as long as, you've done $25,000, you've made a definition, and as long as Texas A&M is around. And that was just shocking to me. I mean, that's so cool.
Yes, and you can do it at any university. Texas A&M, their academic fundraising arm is the Texas A&M Foundation, which I work with. But Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, New Mexico State, any university across the country has the capability to do these things. And it's not only endowed scholarships, they can also do endowed chairs, which support professors. You can endow an excellence fund to help a program. There are numerous ways to help students across a university.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I just realized now I know what an endowed professor is. Okay, I get it. Okay, so in terms of just the landscape of different scholarships, so you've probably seen it all, and this isn't just financial planning. In our case, we're doing one that I'll get to later on. You've probably seen it all, right? I mean, across all different colleges and different motivations and different goals from different families. I mean, is that fair to say that there's no two alike?
Very fair. Very few scholarships are alike because the donor gets to choose what their scholarship looks like. I've worked with scholarship donors that wanted to support viticulture and enology, so essentially winemaking. I've had donors that wanted to support animal science students, or even though I work with the College of Ag specifically, I have a donor who's interested in supporting a scholarship in our nursing program.
Interesting. And so, when I kind of think about criteria, one of the things that also surprised me was, I thought oh, well, if we do a scholarship one day, if we're ever fortunate enough to do that, that means that we're going to have to review a ton of applicants, and I just don't have time to do that. Well, it turns out we're not even allowed to do that, and that's something that the college does. And so somebody listening to this might be averse to forming a scholarship because they think it's something they have to take care of administratively. And it may be a given to you, but maybe talk about how the university handles that.
Right. So for an endowed scholarship, all of these endowed scholarships are philanthropic. So they're all tax deductible. And for them to be considered charitable contributions, essentially, and be a gift, the donor cannot choose who that scholarship student is. So it takes all of the work off those individuals. The college, and it depends on whether it's the college level or the unit level, program level, but they have committees that review the scholarships. And so not only do we utilize FAFSA forms, but some colleges require essays and things of that nature.
Excellent. And so, yeah, pivoting a little bit to talk about the scholarship that we just recently did, I really want to honor my friend in this podcast. I'll be sending it to his family. The Brian K. Robertson Perseverance and Belief Endowed Scholarship is something that Crestmont and my wife and I are going to be doing to honor my late friend who passed of sarcoma. Great Aggie, even better human being, Christ follower, incredible man, left behind his wife and 2 children, but is never, ever forgotten. And we wanted to do something that would be in perpetuity. And so I'm really excited about that. And I really appreciate you, Brandy, meeting with me to go over that. And, you know, somebody listening to this right now is probably thinking of somebody that they'd like to honor. Or maybe it's, you know, they had a tough time in school and they skated by at a 2.5 GPA and they got out, and maybe they want to get that kid that is kind of skating by and working 3 jobs. And so what you're saying is you can be as creative as you want to be. Is that fair?
Correct.
Interesting. Okay, so on your background, Brandy, tell us a little bit about you. You know, you've got this East Texas accent, and I know you're really big into equestrian, and you went to Texas A&M. Tell us about your path and what lights your fire and what got you to where you are.
So I grew up in Kaufman, just east of Dallas, and I grew up showing Appaloosa horses in the all-around world. In addition to that, I also was on the 4-H horse judging team. Once we were judging at state, I was recruited by Clarendon College. Jerry Hawkins was the coach of the livestock judging team at that time, and he recruited me to Clarendon, which, if you don't know where it is, it's 60 miles south of Amarillo, so a long way away from Kaufman, Texas. I always had a dream after that to judge for Texas A&M. Growing up a 4-H kid, the epitome of college is Texas A&M a lot of times, and you're always there. So wanted to judge for Texas A&M and had that opportunity. I transferred to Texas A&M in 2003 and studied agricultural journalism and agricultural communications. And out of college, I ended up trying to find a job, not sure what I wanted to do, and started working at the Association of Former Students, which is our alumni giving side of things at the university. So if you're an Aggie, it's where we give our $100 a month to the Century Club and you get your bar. And really, really enjoyed that. And about 8 years in, wasn't sure what I needed to do, but knew I needed to spread my wings. Marty Holmes, who's an Aggie and works at the association, pulled me in his office one day and said, I know you love what you're doing, but I think I know where you need to go. And
wow, that's awesome.
I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, Lakeview Methodist Conference Center, where we hold fish camp, which is like our freshman orientation, is looking for a development officer, their very first development officer. And I said, Marty, I don't raise money. I don't ask people for money. And he said, I'll never forget these words. He said, you have done everything you've needed to do in building relationships to connect people to the university, and you've just never had to ask. That's the next step. And so I said, okay. He said, I've already sent your name in, so you got to interview. And I walked next door to Barbara Casper's office, who is the development individual for the association at that point in time. And I said, Barbara, can I do this? And she said, I have no doubt you can. So that started my development career. I started at Lakeview, spent 3 years there, helped them build a brand new indoor and outdoor amphitheater through philanthropic funds and a new set of dorms. And then in 2016, applied to the Texas A&M Foundation and been here almost 10 years now.
What an incredible story. Isn't that amazing? You know, I'm just sitting here with Barron. He's shaking his head, and he even did a little fist pump when you were sharing that story. You know, all you need is somebody to believe in you, to take that next step and to take that initiative to point you in the right direction. What a cool mentor. A little shout out to your mentor there. So we're going to pivot a little bit. You know, if you're listening to this and you're wondering, why are we talking about charitable giving and philanthropic giving on the Ascent with Crestmont Private Wealth? Well, the reason is because so much of wealth management is about wealth transfer, either to your kids or to charity during your lifetime or after your lifetime. Or it's going to the government, or it's going to some person that's maybe way down the line in your will. So really, really important, if you're listening to this, to really think about where you want your dollars to go. I mean, it's how you vote with your resources. If there's something that's on your heart right now about creating a scholarship or contacting your alma mater, and it happens to be Texas A&M, Brandy, how would they reach you? Because obviously that's a conversation we would have with our clients, but, you know, let's say somebody listening to this who's not a client, you know, wants to reach you. How would they find you?
Well, they can reach me on my email. It's bkinds, KINES, at TXAMFoundation.com. I'm happy to have them reach out on my cell phone, 469-323-1391. Either way, I'll respond back and we can talk about what you'd like to establish.
Super cool. And, you know, if you're listening to this and you happen to be a Longhorn, well, I'm sorry, but I married a Longhorn, so I can say that. Baylor Bear, just keep in mind that there's lots of options for charitable giving, and it could change a student's life and trajectory. And I feel so fortunate that I met you, Brandy, and I'm so grateful that you would come on our show, spend some of your valuable time to impart a little bit of wisdom today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for your scholarship.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a big game this weekend. By the time this airs, it'll either be a win or a loss, either Cotton Bowl or no Cotton Bowl. But I just want to leave it with a God bless and gig 'em.